Pão de Ló, Portuguese sponge cake, which is just amazing, smooth, moist, and everything you're searching for in a cake. This is the recipe. You need to try this at home. It is so simple, I promise you. Super, super simple. 4-ingredient recipe. It's perfect for whipping up a birthday cake or a simple afternoon treat. Follow me into the kitchen. I'm going to show you the tips and tricks in how to make this recipe a total success.
Our first task is going to be to preheat our oven to 350 Fahrenheit or 180 Celsius. For this recipe, we will need 8 eggs, weigh the eggs with the shells, weigh the same amount of granulated sugar, half the weight of the eggs in cake flour, and 1 teaspoon of coarse salt. So we will start by cracking the eggs and adding the granulated sugar in a large mixing bowl. Using an electric mixer or stand mixer, fitted with a whisk attachment, beat the eggs and sugar on high speed for about 12 minutes, or until the mixture is pale, fluffy, and has tripled in volume. Meanwhile, we will grease a 9-inch or 23 centimeters round cake pan with butter or oil. And I'm going to start brushing melted butter evenly on the base and edges of the pan using a pastry brush. Now, if you don't have a pastry brush, it's perfectly alright. You can also use paper towels. Just ball up the paper towels and soak the bottom corner in the butter. I will also dust the inside of the pan with a little flour to help the cake release more easily. Pão de Ló is a Portuguese sponge cake made of eggs, sugar, and wheat flour. Unlike other cakes or breads, yeast or baking powder are generally not used. Rather, to provide volume, air is suspended into the cake batter during mixing. This delicious and fluffy cake is one of the most traditional cakes in Portugal, and like most Portuguese confectionery, it originates from convents. But what is intriguing is the reason behind the word ló. Ló means screen, which is a thin and transparent fabric. But also, and this is very interesting, it means the side where the wind blows, which is the windward side. Regardless, in both cases, the name evokes its characteristic of lightness. Sift the cake flour into the egg mixture in 2 or 3 additions, gently folding with a whisk or spatula after each addition, until just combined. Be careful not to overmix, as this can deflate the batter. Tradition has it that the sponge cake recipe belonged to the nuns of the convent of Cos, who taught the techniques of its preparation to a family in Alfazarão. Another version states that the ló or screen was the cloth where slices of pão de ló were wrapped in to be stored and eaten later or presented as gifts. Sponge cake was always present on the tables of the wealthier priests, and it was recommended for the diets of the convalescents and also sent as a gift and comfort to families in mourning. It was also offered to those condemned to death, along with a glass of wine when they ascended to the scaffold. The first Portuguese who arrived in Japan in the 16th century brought with them the recipe for sponge cake, known as Castilian bread, which became one of the most typical sweets in Japan, known as casuteira. In Portugal, there are 6 recognized versions of Pão de Ló. The oldest and the original one is Margarida sponge cake. It is estimated that sponge cake was created in the second half of the 1700s, when the Genoese cook Giovanni Carbona presented the Spanish king on the occasion of a banquet with an extremely light cake that he named Pan de España, or bread of Spain, in honor of the Spanish court of the time. The innovation of this recipe is precisely the cold preparation of the dough, rich in eggs, with all the ingredients added in a container and then cooked in a water bath. Over the years, this preparation technique was abandoned. Out of the 6 recognized and award-winning recipes, we can find Pão de Ló de Margaride, named after the region of Margaride. It is known for its light and airy texture. Alfazarão, Alpiarça, and Ovar are renowned for their traditional preparation methods and rich flavor. They have a denser texture compared to other versions and a very soft and moist interior that melts in your mouth together with the cake. And finally, we have the Portuguese Sponge Cake, which is prepared in a rectangular mold like a pound cake. It is marketed in the form of individually packaged slices. Before being packaged, the slices of Portuguese sponge cake are wrapped in hot sugar syrup. There is also a non-original version of the recipe called Brazilian-style sponge cake, completely different from the traditional original, mainly because it uses far fewer eggs. Pour the batter into the prepared cake pan, spreading it evenly with a spatula. Bake in the preheated oven for 25 to 30 minutes or until the top is golden brown and the toothpick inserted into the center of the cake comes out clean. Once baked, remove the cake from the oven and let it cool in the pan for about 10 minutes. Then carefully run a knife around the edges of the cake to loosen it from the pan. Curious expressions in Portugal about sponge cake. It is easier to sustain a donkey with sponge cake. This expression is used to describe something extremely hard to do or to sustain. The idea behind it is that a donkey, as an animal that eats a lot, would be very hard to sustain if fed with something as light and as soft as sponge cake. Or we can say, to be treated with sponge cake. This expression is used to describe a situation where someone is treated with luxury, comfort, and exceptional attention. It derives from the idea that sponge cake, being a soft and delicious cake, is a symbol of indulgence and care. Therefore, when someone is treated with sponge cake, it means that they are receiving exceptionally good and caring treatment. And invert it into a serving plate or a wire rack to cool completely. Once cooled, transfer the Pão de Ló to a serving plate and enjoy your delicious Portuguese Pão de Ló.
Didn't I tell you that it was great? It's great, right? And it's not complicated at all. I know you can do it. I know you want to do it. So grab your apron, go into the kitchen and go do this right now. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe so I can bring you more of these delicious treats. And until our next meeting, you know it. Keep cooking, keep smiling, and as they say in Portugal, bom apetite.